Before the abduction of Jacob Wetterling, it was one of Minnesota's most notorious mysteries.
Mary and Susan Reker left their home to go buy school supplies, and they never returned. Their bodies were found almost a month later, and whoever killed them remains at large.
Tonight, the Fox 9 investigators reveal new information about a similar crime. Could they be connected? Here's Jeff Ballion.
The road to find justice has been brutally long.
I'm 80 years old, so it's got to come pretty quick.
But even after 4 decades of wrong turns and dead ends,
I feel that there are people out there who know, people who have not come forth yet.
Rita Reker remains hopeful the murders of her daughters Mary and Sue can be solved.
I told them, okay, they can go, but get back quickly because I had work for them to do.
The girls, who were just 12 and 15, were last seen alive by their parents on Labor Day 1974. They'd left their St. Cloud home on foot to go buy school supplies at the Zayre's discount store about a mile away.
Anybody that can look 2 young girls in the face and stab them to death is not a normal person.
26 agonizing days after they disappeared, the girls' bodies were discovered in a quarry outside of town. Sue was covered with brush. She'd been stabbed 13 times. Mary was underwater. There were 6 puncture wounds on her body.
Without our faith, we couldn't have gone on. It would have destroyed our lives.
All these years and still no leads? Maybe not. The Fox 9 investigators recently learned of another crime, one with haunting similarities to the Reker case.
He never showed any remorse, ever.
This man was an accomplice to a vicious attack on another St. Cloud girl. It happened almost 2 years to the day after Mary and Sue Reker's bodies were found. Using Minnesota's open records law, we obtained police and court files about this other case never made public before.
Oh, I just have dreams all the time of this poor girl.
The accomplice agreed to an audio interview with the Fox 9 investigators as long as we disguised his voice. In the fall of 1976, when he was 17, he hung out for a time with a classmate named Herb Notch. One Saturday evening, they were driving around St. Cloud and stopped at a convenience store called the Dairy Bar.
He said, well, let's just go in and knock over this store. No big deal.
They went into the store with a gun. 14-year-old Sue Dukowitz was manning the register while her dad, the owner, was doing some work next door. They ordered her to hand over money from the till, then told her to go with them out to the car. Notch drove south of St. Cloud to this dirt road, which at the time led to a secluded gravel pit.
He always had this knife, and he was always playing with it.
Notch parked the car off the road. Dukowitz was tied up with tape. Notch used his knife to slice through the front of her sweater. Then he cut off her bra and underwear. After sexually assaulting her, he stabbed her.
He had no remorse at all. None. Like hitting a bug on your windshield.
Notch and the accomplice believed Dukowitz was dead, so they hid her body under some brush.
He's throwing weeds and stuff on her.
What happened in this attack has striking similarities to what we know about the stabbing deaths of the Reker girls. They too were taken to a remote location outside St. Cloud, but it was a quarry, not a gravel pit. Mary Reker also had her sweater cut down the front and her bra cut off. The body of her sister was hidden in the brush.
Lord knows, how long it would have taken before she'd have been found,
But there's one significant difference between the cases. Sue Dukowitz lived to give police a description of her kidnappers.
She said when played dead.
After Notch and his accomplice drove off, she managed to walk a half-mile through the darkness towards a light.
They heard the knock on the back door of the house here.
Ralph Thole's parents helped her inside, laid her on their couch, and called for an ambulance.
I really shook my folks up, I really did.
Hours later, police found Notch and the accomplice. Notch admitted he was the one who stabbed Dukowitz. When asked why, he said, quote, "I still haven't got an answer for that."
I think he did it because he liked it.
A judge ordered Notch to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Court records show doctors determined he had a fearlessly savage quality about him, a very dangerous person. In the right situation, a homicidal individual. He seems to lack any significant remorse regarding his alleged offenses. Notch was offered a deal, plead guilty to robbery and kidnapping, and charges of attempted murder and sexual assault would be dismissed. He took the offer and was sentenced to 40 years in prison.
Is he a suspect?
We know who Herb is.
The Stearns County Sheriff's Department won't say if Notch is now a suspect in their 42-year-old investigation of the Reker murders.
I can agree with you that there's similarities in both cases.
Multiple sources tell us Notch was questioned previously about the Reker case.
These little girls deserve justice. They did not deserve to die that way.
Denny Sigafus periodically worked on the Reker homicides before retiring from the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in 1994.
So if you were working the case today and you knew about this other case, what would you do?
Oh, I would have been all over Notch and, and anybody that he knew, and everybody that he knew.
Sigafus says the two crimes are too similar to ignore the possibility of a connection.
When you say about, the cutting off the bra and the sweater up the front, that's a pretty big coincidence.
Herb Notch served only 10 years of that 40-year sentence for his attack on Sue Dukowitz. In 1988, after being released from St. Cloud prison, he got into trouble again. A former girlfriend accused him of breaking into her home and raping her at knife point. He was acquitted of the sex charge but found guilty of false imprisonment and burglary. In 1992, another female acquaintance claimed Notch drove her to a remote location, tied her up, and raped her in the back of his pickup truck. The Minnesota Fugitive Task Force spent 14 months tracking him down after charges were filed. They found him in Phoenix, Arizona, where he was living under his brother's name. That brother, Stephen Notch, was in prison at the time for killing his sleeping roommate with a couple of bullets to the head. Herb Notch returned to Minnesota to stand trial on the rape charges, but was acquitted. He still lives here, is married, and has children.
Hi, is this Herb?
Notch would not speak with us about the Reker case.
Did you receive my letter?
We sent him a couple of letters, including one by registered mail, asking him to talk about the striking similarities between the knife attack on Sue Dukowitz and the stabbings of the Reker girls. His response when I called to follow up, quote, "Let me tell you something. Don't bother me any effing more."
Does it seem like forever or yesterday?
Both.
Through the decades, the Reker family has struggled to understand who possibly would want to kill Mary and Sue.
It could have been anybody, and that was hard, just learning to trust people around us and trust that life would be good for us.
Denny Sigafus, the former BCA agent, believes the murders were, in his words, inept, likely committed by a young person or persons because the crime scene was sloppy.
Who's ever done that, I think, had contact with him and knew him.
This much we do know. Herb Notch was employed at the Zaire store where the Reker girls went shopping the day they disappeared. Notch's family lived outside St. Cloud in Luxembourg, the same tiny town where the girls would visit their grandparents. Notch and Mary were the same age. In one of the last entries to her diary, Mary wrote a chilling message. "If I am murdered, find my killer and see that justice is done. I have a few reasons to fear for my life, and what I ask is important."
She wrote it to our family, and she said, "See that justice wins over." That's hard. That was my child.
This family deserves answers. Somebody knows something. If you have any information, no matter how insignificant it may seem, it's time to share. Call the Stearns County Sheriff's Department or Crime Stoppers. We also have these numbers posted on the Fox 9 app, and you can remain anonymous and be eligible for a possible reward.
You know, this still lives vividly in my mind after attending school right after they were abducted. What about the, you talked to so many people in this story. What about Sue Dukowitz? Whatever happened to her?
Well, sadly, she passed away in the 90s from cancer. She was only 34 years old, and her family says obviously this incident in her life really was devastating.
I bet. So many elements of this are so chilling and just so incredibly tragic. This accomplice that you spoke with, what happened to that person?
Well, he was sent to prison too. He served 7 years in prison, but he's been out of trouble ever since. And he says he doesn't know anything about what happened to the Reker girls.
Well, maybe this will get some answers going.
Sure be nice if people would call in if they have information.
All right, stay on it. Thanks.